people. As the mountains surround Jerusalem, so the Lord surrounds his people. Surround us, Lord. Surround us, O Lord. We need to be in your presence. Surround us, Lord. As the mountains surround Jerusalem, so the Lord surrounds his people. As the mountains surround Jerusalem, so the Lord surrounds his people. Surround us, Lord. Surround us, O Lord. We need to be in your presence. Surround us, Lord. Surround us, Lord. Surround us, O Lord. We need to be in your presence. Surround us, Lord. Surround us, Lord. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. My chains are gone, I've been set free. My God, my Savior, has ransomed me. And like a flood, his mercy reigns, unending love, amazing grace. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace hath brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. My chains are gone, I've been set free. My God, my Savior, has ransomed me. And like a flood, his mercy reigns, unending love, amazing grace. My chains are gone, I've been set free. My God, my Savior, has ransomed me. And like a flood, his mercy reigns, unending love,
right, everyone, welcome back to John chapter 19. When last we left off, which I suppose would have been the Sunday before this past one, if I'm not mistaken, last week being Christmas week, Jesus has been delivered to Pilate from the high priests, right, Annas, Caiaphas, who had put him through what we might call a kangaroo court of a trial, mistreated him, handed him over to Pilate. In chapter 18, we saw that unfolding. Pilate's questioning of Jesus, trying to ascertain exactly what is going on here, because he these Jewish leaders want Jesus dead. They said as much in John 18:31, even though he had a hard time trying to get out of them exactly why. He came to the conclusion that that there's no fault in Jesus. That's 18:38. Given this, what I take to be a clearly sarcastic response on his part. Again, people debate it, but he's there in verse, verse 38, beginning of verse 38. I'm not entirely sure at that point what he thinks. I get the impression he thinks, this is a guy that the Jewish leaders have a personal problem with. They don't like what he's been going around saying, but it's rather clear to Pilate that these accusations that he's a threat to Rome, that he's trying to raise his own army, clearly are not true. So he ascended them to offer, what do you want me to let him go, or Barabbas, this violent offender? They say Barabbas. So when we left off in verse 19, we had the scene in which Pilate had Jesus scourged, and we discussed what that entails. It's just one word there that's easy to overlook, but a horrific thing. The crown of thorns, the robe, the mockery, and then Pilate had brought Jesus back out to them. Behold the man, right? And I've heard it suggested off the top of my head. I don't recall if the other gospel accounts make this entirely clear. I think it's something you have to kind of read between the lines, if I'm not mistaken. But Jesus has been beaten so badly that Pilate has to indicate to them, this is Jesus of Nazareth, right? This is the man that you had brought to me. I scourged him so severely. He's been beaten so badly that his face is swollen, unrecognizable. He's been beaten so severely. So that's where we had left off. Now, keep in mind what we said about Pilate. What we know about Pilate, he's a politician. He's opportunistic. His primary concern in life is don't rock the boat, right? He's the local Roman official, and his job is to maintain peace and order. Rome wants passive, diligent taxpayers, right? That's what Rome cares about. They don't want uprisings. They don't want insurrections. They don't want trouble. They want peace and quiet, and again, for people to bend the knee to Rome and to pay their taxes and whatnot. So that's Pilate's concern. He knows that Jesus is innocent, right? He said as much. We saw the interrogation. Pilate understands this is clear. He's bowed to the pressure because he can also see that regardless of what's true about Jesus, these Jewish leaders that brought Jesus to him absolutely hate him, and their clear expectation is for Pilate to put him to death. So based on what's about to follow, I think it's the case that Pilate made the offer concerning Barabbas, not expecting them to take it. And again, that's a bit of speculation on my part, but he said, I find no fault in this man, but you know what? It's the Passover. It's a custom to release someone, to give a pardon. Would you rather have Barabbas instead? I believe he fully expected them to say, well, no, keep Barabbas. Just give us Jesus and be done with this. Then he has him scourged. He has this mockery with the crown and the robe. which I think is kind of the second ploy, and you'll see why I say this in just a moment, to try to pacify the crowd, right? It's like, look, you people clearly hate this man. He's innocent. I offered you the exchange with Barabbas. You took that. Again, somewhat, I would imagine to Pilate surprisingly. Okay, I've taken him, I've beaten him, I've humiliated him. Are you satisfied now? I believe is Pilate's thinking. So verse 6, where we left off. Now, bear in mind John 2:17. I mentioned John 11 quite a few times in the last couple of class periods. That was where, of course, Caiaphas convinced his fellow Jewish leaders after Lazarus was raised and more people followed Jesus. We have to kill him to stop this, to stop people from following after him. But you go all the way back to John 2:17, right? This is Jesus quoting Psalm 69. The zeal of thine house hath eaten me up. They've hated him all along, and Jesus has known it all along. You can go even further back than that. You go all the way back to the prologue and the harassment they gave John the Baptist. If you remember all the way back to chapter 1, even before we encountered Jesus in the story. They've hated him all along. The chief priests, therefore, and officers saw him. Okay, so remember, Pilate's beaten him, humiliated him, taken him back out. Again, I'm convinced, with the sense of, okay, are you satisfied now? You brought this man to me. Look what I've done to him. He's innocent, but look, look what I've done for you. The chief priests saw him. They cried out, saying, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" So they're not satisfied. And one thing that's clear here and in the other accounts, although I think perhaps in Luke 22, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. Either 22 or 23. Luke 23. There's a lot more back and forth that you find. In fact, if in Luke's account, they bring him to Pilate. They tell Pilate right off the bat why they brought him. Right, in John, Herod can't kind of drag that out of him. They refuse to say what the charge is. And Luke, they tell him. And as Pilate's listening to them, they say, "This man has been causing trouble from Galilee all the way down to Jerusalem." Pilate hears the word Galilee and says, "Aha, this is Herod's problem." Right? Herod being another local, a Roman client official there. Galilee is his jurisdiction. Let Herod deal with it. He goes to Herod. It's in Luke, Herod is the one who puts the robe on him and who mocks him, and then brings him back to Pilate. In John, as we just saw, Pilate is the one who does that. This is why if you ever hear anyone say, "Well, this happened several times," that would be why. Right? Like in Luke, Herod's the one who does it. In John, Pilate's the one who does it, and Herod's not there at all. But anyway, the point is, what is in Luke, and in the other accounts as well, there's a lot of back and forth that happens here. It's crystal clear that Pilate doesn't want to do this. Not only does Pilate find Jesus innocent, right? I find no fault in him. It's also quite clear that he doesn't want to do this. Now, as I mentioned before, in fact, the last class period, if I recall correctly, said, don't feel too bad for Pilate, right? He's a weasel. He's a politician, because even though he knows this man is innocent, and he doesn't want to crucify him, he's going to do it anyway. And that's what we're about to see play out here. But again, kind of think of the progression here. He tries to push back against the mob. This is a local problem. You deal with it. That was his first pushback. And they said, well, we can't, because he needs to be put to death and only you can do it. Okay? So he takes him. The second pushback, when he finds out, he realizes Jesus is innocent, he hasn't done anything certainly worthy of death, he comes back out and says, okay, well, there's the pardon custom. Do you want Jesus or Barabbas? Well, give us Barabbas, okay? But he's still in this predicament. The third thing that he does, he scourges Jesus, beats him violently. The crown, the robe, the humiliation, brings him back out and says, okay, here he is. Again, I'm convinced, hoping that would satisfy them. It's like, well, okay, you didn't put him to death, but we're good. You gave him a good thrashing. You've mocked him. We'll take that. But they don't. Crucify him, crucify him. Pilate said unto them, take ye him and crucify him, for I find no fault in him. Okay, again, these people are blinded by hatred. They have been for some time now, all along really. Pilate tells them to go and crucify him, again noting that he's innocent. And again, I come back to the fact that Pilate is right. He's rotten. If you think, well, I feel kind of bad for him because he realizes the truth here. He knows Jesus is innocent, and it's evident he doesn't want to do this. He's also not going to stand in the way of it being done, because essentially what he's telling them here in verse 6 is, look, you people go, if you want to crucify him, y'all go and do it. I'll look the other way, right? This man's innocent, but if you absolutely insist, you go and do it. But they won't. Again, think of the kind of lawyerly mindset that these Jewish leaders have. You go back to verse 31, right? Maybe Pilate's saying, I'll look the other way if you go and crucify him, but they know it's not lawful for them to do it. Pilate is the one who has the legal authority to do this. Again, that's why they brought him there in the first place. 7, the Jews answered him, we have a law, and by our law he ought to die, because he made himself the Son of God. Well, for one thing, he didn't make himself the Son of God. He is the Son of God. Right? He's not a blasphemer playing the role. I've mentioned before recently, in this time period, in the 1st century AD, there are plenty of false messiahs running around. There's a lot of interest in this time period with Daniel's prophetic writings and other apocryphal writings produced during the Maccabean and the Hasmonean periods, the Intertestament period, right? It's kind of a trendy, fashionable thing at this point in time to be engrossed in, end times theology and messianic prophecy. So there are plenty of people running around making claims like this. Jesus is certainly not the only one saying it. However, he is the only one for whom it's actually true, which certainly sets him apart from the pretenders. But they're presenting him that way. He's guilty of this crime just like these other people are. They also deserve to die because he's a blasphemer. And they're kind of answering, they're trying to make trying to make up charges to fit the sentence, because remember the initial complaint was even though here in John they don't come out and say it, Pilate gets at it again, and if you read Luke, they're a little clearer about it. He's a threat. He's trying to raise himself up. He's trying to set himself up as a king against Caesar. Pilate, you got to do something about it. This is a capital offense. Well, Pilate clearly didn't go for that. So now they changed their tack, right? So he's still worthy of a death sentence because he's a blasphemer, right? So, okay, Pilate, maybe he hasn't broken any Roman laws, right? Again, which to me is crazy, because the way I take this, verse 7 is they're essentially admitting that the reason they brought him there was a farce, because they don't press the case. Here's Pilate clearly not wanting to crucify this man, and rather than pressing the point, because if it were true, right, what would they do? They would say, look, Pilate, I don't know what he told you that made you think he's not a threat, that he's not rousing up all these people and trying to start his own private army, but he is, right? If it's evidence you want, then we'll go and get it. But what we told you is true. This man is a threat. But that's not what they say. Now they come back and say, well, you know what? Okay, maybe he's not guilty of the crime we brought him here for. But you know what? He still deserves to die because by our law, the Jewish law, right, the law of Moses, he's a blasphemer. As it's kind of like when our last class, the last Sunday we met, I said, I hope that as you're reading this, you pick up on the fact that the Jewish leaders and this mob that they've assembled, this angry crowd, are doing the very thing that they accuse Jesus of that they brought him to Pilate for, right? Stirring up trouble, whipping the people into a frenzy, causing a threat that could be a problem for the Roman governor. They're doing that. I hope you see too, like the example here in verse 7. They'll just say whatever they have to. Again, instead of pressing the truth of their case, they just make up another reason. Oh, you know what? Okay, maybe he's not a threat, but he's a blasphemer, so he still needs to die. He didn't break your law, Pilate, but he broke ours, so do it. Crucify him. Verse 8. Now, this is interesting because I don't know why this happens. There are indications of it perhaps in other books. When Pilate therefore heard that saying, he was the more afraid. Why? I don't know. At least not from John. Is it potentially something that he's seen with Jesus and the way he's conducting himself that indicates to him he's not a normal man? That he is, in fact, perhaps what they're accusing of being. Has Jesus said or done something that when Pilate hears this, he realizes, what, that must be true. They're claiming he's a blasphemer, that he's made himself the Son of God, but maybe Pilate's seen something that makes him think, well, maybe he really is the Son of God. Is it possible that this has something to do with Pilate's wife? I'm pretty sure it's Matthew that mentions the fact that Pilate's wife had a dream about this, and she told her husband Pilate, you don't have anything to do with this just man, right? So she tells him, look, this man is innocent, and you need to not have anything to do with this farce, right? What these Jewish men are trying to do to him is wrong, and you need to have no part of it. And I had this dream, I realized this, and I'm telling you. So is it possible that here in verse 8, the reason it says the more afraid is because of what his wife had told him? And he realizes when he hears this, oh wait, maybe she was right after all. I'll tell you what, I don't know. I think, given again, trying to keep it to what John has said, I think, and I'm before I say this, I'm kind of glancing back down again, because sometimes it's easy to get confused. Am I thinking of what I read in Matthew or Mark or Luke or John? Because they cast it in kind of different ways. But I think, what is Pilate afraid of at this point? I would submit to you that he is afraid of the Jewish crowd outside his door. That's what he's scared of. And also it says specifically that he was the more afraid. I haven't seen anything up to this point in the story to indicate that he's afraid of Jesus. He should be, but I haven't, and Jesus is going to point this out here just a couple of verses down. But I haven't seen anything up to this point to suggest that. And again, the way he's going to speak to them, and of course, ultimately, what he's going to do, right, it would suggest to me he's not afraid of Jesus at all. I think he is afraid of the angry crowd right outside the door. And we've just noted the back and forth that he has with them here, and the multiple things he's done that to me suggest he's trying to get out of this. He's trying to have it both ways. He's trying to satisfy their rage against Jesus, however he can. Again, whether it's by putting it off on someone else, being like, this is Herod's problem, go see him, or offering the exchange with Barabbas in hopes that they would take it, or beating Jesus and mocking him as a king like they've accused him, and hoping that will satisfy them. All of those things suggest to me that he fears the crowd. And I think perhaps for him, this is kind of the last straw, because he's tried all of these things to say, look, this man's innocent. I'm not going to put him to death. You go and put him to death if you're so intent upon it. I'm not going to do it. But even then, they don't relent. I mean, he essentially gives them a pass to go and do it. They still insist that he do it. And even though he's innocent and Pilate knows it, the Jewish leaders seem to acknowledge it too, because they flip the script and say, well, he's a blasphemer. Okay, well, Pilate can't help that. At least not in terms of trying to ascertain his innocence or guilt under Roman law. Right now, the Jewish religious leaders, the high priest, has found him guilty of blasphemy, and he needs to die for it. So Pilate heard that saying, he was the more afraid. Again, of what is he afraid? I think he's more afraid of the crowd. He's more afraid of this situation getting away from him. And I keep kind of harping on this because, again, as with most things, there are differing opinions on it depending upon whose commentary you read. Some say, well, he's afraid of Jesus because he hears this and he thinks, oh, wow, maybe this man really is the Son of God. And again, perhaps if you take what we know from other accounts about his wife's dream, that could be. But again, I think he's afraid of this thing getting away from him and the crowd. He went again into the judgment hall and saith unto Jesus, Whence art thou? But Jesus gave him no answer. So he's asking him, where did you come from? For what purpose? For what purpose is he asking this? I don't know. Again, people differ on it. It's kind of like that saying back at the beginning of verse 38. Pilate saith unto him, What is truth? You almost have to see the body language and hear the tone of his voice to really know exactly what he said and how he meant it. Is it a genuine question? What is truth? Are you the one who actually has this truth? Or is it a flippant, sarcastic remark? Like I've said several times, I think it's a sarcastic remark. Here in verse 9, whence art thou? Is he seriously asking, did you come from heaven? You could certainly take it that way, right? Because he hears Jesus as the Son of God, it makes him afraid, and he asks, whence art thou? It could be a genuine question. I don't think it is, and again, it's because of the fact that he's going to go ahead and do this anyway, right? To put him to death, and he makes the show of washing his hands and saying this blood is not on me, but he does it, right? I'm inclined to think it's a who are you, right? Where did you come from? Again, what's the tone here? I don't think he's asking, did you come from heaven? I think he's just trying to genuinely ask, who are you? Where, these people hate you so much That even though they know you're innocent of the charge they brought you here for, they're going to call you a blasphemer too. Who are you? Where do you come from? I think is more the spirit in which this is meant. But again, different people have different thoughts on that, so take it for what it's worth. It could very well be that this is a genuine, earnest question. He wants to know if Jesus in fact came from heaven, or, and again, it's kind of the same question that comes up with the question, what is truth? Is it a genuine desire to know, or is it kind of a, not meant in such a serious way? Now, of course, go back to John 16, 27, 28, look at various other discourses Jesus has given throughout this book. He has made no secret of where he came from or where he's going. So yet again, if it is a question regarding, did you come from heaven? Are you going to heaven? Well, he's been saying that all along, right? It's kind of like, when he was asked the question of, I believe it was Annas, if I'm not mistaken, what's your doctrine? What have you been teaching? And he essentially told him, well, why don't you go ask some of the people out here in the city? I've been saying it publicly. Everyone knows what I've been teaching. Well, the same is true regarding this question that Pilate asks. But Jesus gave him no answer. Then saith Pilate unto him, Speakest thou not unto me? Knowest thou not that I have the power to crucify thee and the power to release thee? Again, it's a statement like this that makes me think, he's not necessarily afraid of Jesus. He's afraid of the crowd outside his door. Again, take that for what it's worth, but the fact that he turns around and says something like this indicates to me that he doesn't, he's not asking this in the frame of mind of someone who is suddenly, seen the proverbial light and he's stricken with reverence for the Son of God standing before him. Again, it's easy to get that impression if you read verse 9 in a certain tone. But the way he comes right back in verse 10, and then again, the fact that he goes forward with putting this man to death, despite all these things, again indicates to me he's a weasel, he's a politician, he does not have a genuine spirit, and he doesn't realize the gravity of what's happening here at all. Now, he doesn't have this power. Jesus is about to note that very thing. Notice that I have the power to crucify thee and have the power to release thee. He isn't going to release him because he's too big a coward. He does have the power to let Jesus go, right? So he has the power to crucify him. Jesus is about to put him in his place there. He doesn't have that kind of power. It's only going to happen if Jesus lets it happen. Does he have the power to release him? Well, sure. Should he have released him, right? Should he have just let him go when he found him innocent rather than offering the Barabbas deal like he did? Sure, it's what he should have done. It's the only right answer, but he isn't going to do it. Again, who is he afraid of in all this? He's afraid of the mob. That's why he's doing everything that he's doing. Jesus answered, Thou couldst have no power at all against me, except it were given thee from above. Therefore he that delivered me unto thee hath the greater sin. Okay, so Jesus is going to lay down his life. The Jews and the Romans don't take it. He is in control every step of the way, just like he has been in every other scenario we've seen since we started studying this book. You may think of the hymn, he could have called 10,000 angels, right? Absolutely. Just like in the garden, right? He let himself be arrested. He told Peter to put down the sword. This is all playing out for a reason, Peter. This is prophecy being fulfilled. It has to be this way. You need to let it unfold. The same is true here. He is allowing it to happen. And also note, and we'll close on this. We'll come back with verse 12 the next time. Make no mistake, that Pilate has guilt in this. He tries to absolve himself of it. We've seen just in this chapter, what is it, 3 times now? Maybe 4, at least 3. He's tried to get out of this. He's made it clear he does not want to crucify Jesus. But he has guilt in this because he's going to do it anyway. Note that Jesus, and I say that because Jesus doesn't tell him he has no sin, but he tells them that those who delivered him to Pilate had the greater sin. Right? So it isn't that Pilate is guilt-free in all of this, but it's the Jewish leaders who truly bear the bulk of the guilt here. So Pilate is something of a pawn in all this. So he has guilt, but Annas, Caiaphas, and company, they have more of it. All right, so Lord willing, we'll pick back up with verse 12 when next we meet. Hopefully this Sunday, and I can say to you, see you next year. Thank you very much for your attention.
Over all the earth you reign on high, every mountain stream, every sunset sky. But my one request, Lord, my only aim, is that you'd reign in me again. Lord, reign in me, reign in your power, over all my dreams. In my darkest hour, you are the Lord of all I am. So won't you reign in me again? Over every thought, over every word, may my life reflect the beauty of my Lord. 'Cause you mean more to me than any earthly thing. So won't you reign in me again? Lord, reign in me, reign in your power, over all my dreams. In my darkest hour, you are the Lord of all I am. So won't you reign in me again? Lord, reign in me, reign in your power, over all my dreams. In my darkest hour, you are the Lord of all I am. So won't you reign in me again? You are the Lord of all I am. So won't you reign